Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. This is Trisha here. We were about to get started. I just want to give everybody a minute to kind of funnel in, get situated. Make sure that if you're joining me today, you have a piece of paper and a pencil with you so that you can go ahead and sketch along with me. I do have a Longhorn Beetle under the microscope right now, and noticed that I actually had a friend respond to the poll and say that they would like to sketch a grasshopper. So, I'm about to go and grab a grasshopper from my collection, just really quick also, so that we can, start with the grasshopper, and then if we want, we can move over to this guy. So let me go and grab a grasshopper really quick, and then I will be right back. On the bottom. Alrighty. Awesome sauce. So I went and I grabbed a grasshopper. This is gonna be, he's actually pretty awesome because while I was pinning him, I actually spread one of his wings out. So when we sketch, we'll actually be able to look at what the wings look like while they're closed and while they're open. Alright, so let me go ahead and get him situated under our microscope. He's pretty cool. Alright, we're gonna do it this way. Awesome. Let me get that skill bar out of the way. Alright, so the grasshopper is a little big to fit its entire body underneath my microscope. So I'm going to go ahead and switch him over to my piece of paper here so that we can look at him in comparison to a ruler, so that we can get an estimate on size. So I would say from the head to the tip of his wings, when his wings are pulled back, he's about 1.5 inches. If we wanted to put that into centimeters, let's see. It would be maybe a little over 3.5 centimeters from the head to the end of the wings. When we're looking at the insect, we'll notice that the wings actually go a lot significantly further back from the body. So if we were just measuring the body instead of including the wings, he's about 3 centimeters long. Alright, grasshoppers are pretty close to insects that I love because as a kid, I would chase grasshoppers around all the time. I'd catch them with my hands, and then I would essentially force feed them grass. So it was one of the things that I kind of loved, was holding a grasshopper and watching their mouth parts move all crazy. And so we'll be able to flip over my grasshopper in a little bit and kind of look at those mouth parts and break them down. I think that a lot of us, when we're learning mouth parts, generally people are going to use the grasshoppers as a good example because you can see all of the different pieces and they're kind of at their basic, at their most basic, rather than having crazy adaptations that go all over the place. All right, so I will admit that I have not, I pulled this grasshopper, right? And I have not identified this grasshopper down to species. So all grasshoppers are in the family, well, all like the true grasshoppers. Grasshoppers are in the family Acrididae. Now, there are other types of grasshoppers, like lubber grasshoppers are actually in a different family. They're Romeliids. There are also grasshoppers that are called, let me get this so it's not auto-focusing on me all over the place. There are also grasshoppers called dwarf grasshoppers that are in a completely different family, and those are going to be in Tetragonidae. And dwarf grasshoppers are really, really cute. I was in Texas, and I collected something like 4 species of dwarf grasshoppers in one night while I was blacklighting. All right, so we've got a good number of people in. So we're going to start sketching our awesome grasshopper here. Now, if you've been to previous live streams of mine, you'll notice that I like to start and draw mostly the body first, and then I'll go back and add things like the wings. So we're going to be looking at this front shape right here. So we're going to be sketching our head first. You will notice that insects are also symmetrical, right? So sometimes it helps to give us kind of a center line to work off of, just to make sure that our insect stays as symmetrical as possible. I'm going to go ahead and give, essentially this wavy line right here is going to be, let's see, the base where the head meets the first segment of the thorax, or the pronotum right there. So we'll go ahead and start kind of on the back of the head, right about here, and then move up. Alrighty. Something along the lines of that shape. And then we're going to go ahead and add his compound eyes on both sides. A lot of times these compound eyes are going to kind of break the line that you made for your head, so you can just go ahead and erase that. That's going to give our eyes just a little bit of depth and a little bit of separation. And then we can go ahead and add in these antennae. Now, my grasshopper's antennae are what we call filiform. They're called filiform antennae. And so what I mean by that is they're almost like a filament, right? So they are long and straight, and they have many, many, many segments. If we were going to zoom in on those antennae, oh no. That's awesome. My microscope, I think, may have just crashed. That's fun. All right, so we're not going to zoom in at this very moment. If we are looking at the antenna, though, they're going to be connected up here, and then they're fairly long and straight. I, a lot of times, will like to give it a double layer and then just go through and add all of these little individual lines. That's going to give us kind of the texture that we want for these filiform antennae. It doesn't make sense to go and count those because the number of segments doesn't matter as much with grasshoppers, especially when they have so many. And moving back right about here, this is this whole shield right here. This is the pronotum. And right about here, this is kind of a central ridge. So that's going to kind of help us base the rest of our grasshopper. All right, so coming down and out. this kind of cool shield shape to his pronotum. And a lot of times this body part right here, this does kind of help shield. The front pair of legs are also going to be coming off of here. So you can always just go and kind of imagine where they're going to be. We'll go back and add the legs after. But sometimes giving yourself that position helps a little bit. Awesome. So I've got a variety of people out there hanging out with me today. How long have I been into entomology? I have always been interested in insects. Since I was a very, very young child. I would say when I was 9, I made up my own word. I told my parents that I was going to be an insectologist, because I didn't know the word entomology yet. So I've wanted to be an entomologist since before I knew what the word meant. I started helping with biomonitoring at the Rouge River in Michigan when I was like 13. And I was leading groups by the age of 13, going out into rivers, collecting insects, and helping identify and monitor the health of the Rouge River. So that's a little bit of my background. I also managed a classical biological control lab in a BSL-2 containment facility, meaning we had a species from another country that wasn't allowed to be released, right? And we were testing it against the brown marmorated stink bug. That was fun. All right. I am going to have to, let's see. I have to restart my microscope program. It has frozen itself on me, but it'll be right back. Hopefully. I don't know why it froze on me. All right. The stream isn't going, I might have to pause the stream really quick so that I can get, my microscope camera back up and running, but I will be right back. I am sorry for, oh, no, it's not going to come back by itself. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. My microscope is back up and running. I just have to fix this really quick, and then we will be all set. I am sorry about that. Sometimes you just can't control technology. There we go. Awesome. So, that is a little bit about him. Alrighty. So we have our head. We got the basic pronotum shape down. And we'll notice that my grasshopper is going to have 4 wings, right? He's got the first pair of wings. These are called the tegmina. They're kind of like a leathery pair of wings that help protect. That's going to be this little guy right here. All right, and then he has a pair of membranous wings, and that is this whole section that we're probably going to have to put on my piece of paper to get the overall view and shape of before we come back and add all of the fine details with the microscope. So we'll sketch the left side first. All right, we'll sketch over here so that we can kind of see where the wings are going to fall, and then we'll come back. Perfect. All right, so going in, we're going to go into our center line, which is right about here. And then we're going to go ahead and give our grasshopper his wing around the left side that comes straight down. My grasshopper is going to go off the page because I drew his head too big starting. But that'll be fine. Alrighty. It looks like maybe the outside of his wing doesn't connect all the way to the edge. We might start it somewhere around here to give us the connections for the wings and the body. Yeah. Alrighty. And then we can go ahead and just bring him over a little bit. All right, so you'll notice that we've got this kind of first pair of wings up here. This is the tegmina, and then our membranous. So coming through this way, man, it's been a minute since it has been a minute since I've sketched a grasshopper. I'm glad you guys chose this. It gives me a little bit of space to stretch. And so how you're going to spell that if you are working on labeling different body parts, it's called tegmina, Tegmina. All right, and then moving down, we've got all of those, you'll notice all of those kind of connections and veins and stuff that are going to be connecting right about here on our body. So I'm going to start by giving us the top of this wing, and then going down, we're going to give ourselves the outside. Our wings come all the way down. Grasshoppers, when they fly like this, when they've got these huge wings and they are and they're flying around in a field, sometimes people will think that they're large moths or butterflies even sometimes. If they move so fast and you don't see them land, these guys have huge wings. I was actually in a I was at a an orchard once, and the grasshoppers were absolutely flying everywhere, and they were landing on people, and I thought it was kind of funny, because they were like, they're like moths, and like, no, these guys are actually around because they're feeding on all the leaves, and they are grasshoppers. All right, so my wing. All of the veins on our wings are going to be radiating from this point here because they have the ability to kind of close. So you can go ahead and give yourself these lines that all kind of radiate from the center. All right, but then along with these lines that radiate from the center, you're also going to have all of these little itty bitty kind of cross veins here. And so you can go ahead and kind of sketch those in. You don't obviously have to sketch as many as she has because she has so many. But it'll give you and the person who is viewing your sketch an idea of kind of the texture and what the grasshopper is going to have looked like. If you get to the end of an area and you notice that it's kind of wide, just go ahead and add another line. And so you're almost building this kind of like you would sketch bricks on a house. The cross veins aren't going to always line up. Sometimes they do. All right. And then on our friend here, the colors tend to be important on the hind wing. So it's good to know that he's got this yellow hind wing color, but also that he's got this black tipped around the edge. Mine, I drew too large, so he's not going to get the whole... I might have to draw an example wing on the next page. But I'm going to go ahead and give him a little bit of this color on the edge and then bring the color up to about here, because there is this spot where it kind of moves in right about here. All right. And next time I'll start him a little bit smaller. Alrighty, so that's gonna give us our wings, our head, and I'm gonna go ahead and sketch the legs on the left side of my friend, because the right side is pretty much all wing. Alright, and we can move our microscope around a little bit. There we go. Awesome. So just checking out the leg, we have this right here is going to be the femur. This right here is the tibia, and then we have tarsal segments. And so this is 1, 2, 3 tarsal segments. When we are looking at him, we also might notice that he's got these tibial spines. He's got a handful of them. They're not super strong. And there's going to be, I believe, some stronger tibial spurs at the base of their tibia. So we might be able to zoom in just a little bit. Check him out. Yeah, so there are these two. You'll see they're kind of darker right here to the left and the right of the end of the tibia. Those are kind of stronger tibial spurs. Yep. I would imagine those can be used for kind of cleaning their antenna. That would be my guess. So going into the left side of my sketch, I'm going to be adding these legs. Now the femur, the first segment, is going to be, let's see. All right. Let me get the angles right. All right, so when we're building out the femur, we're going to be going ahead and making sure that it is moving kind of in this forward direction. And then the tibia. And our tibia is going to have, we can make it kind of this longer rectangle, but we want to go back and add some of these spines, and then the spurs on the end of either side. That's going to give us the details that we'd like. And then up here, we've got these tarsal segments. Now, our tarsal segments are interesting because if you've sketched with me before, you would know that many insects are going to have kind of these rectangular or square tarsal segments, and this guy has, well, the first one is rectangular. That's pretty normal. But this second tarsal segment is like a circle. It's almost like a pad that the third tarsal segment's coming out of. So when we're sketching that, we're going to sketch kind of one rectangle. But then we can go ahead and, I'm going to erase my antenna. It's going to get in the way. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a kind of this circle pad shape. That's going to give us our second segment. And then we're going to get the third one from the center of that. So we're going to start it right about here and pull it out. All right. And so that is going to give us our tarsal segments for a grasshopper. And if we were looking at that from a lateral point of view or from a sideways point of view, we would see that kind of the plate is this kind of pad, and then the third tarsal segment kind of comes out and over. That, I would believe, helps kind of stabilize our grasshopper. Oh, he needs to be straight. Yeah. Cool. All right, so we've got our first leg. Our second and third pairs of legs are going to be facing in the backwards direction, and they're going to be starting back here, right? Because our second pair of legs is connected to the second segment of the thorax. It's also where the hind wing is connected. So let's check that out. It's too bright. There we go. All right. So you can see kind of where the leg comes out of the body. It's right here at this angle, kind of where the pronotum meets. And it's also where we decided to give a little bit of space. So what I mean by that is we have this little bit of an angle right here, and we can actually work that out a little bit, and that's where the leg is going to come off of. All right, and then we're also going to probably make one more for where the hind leg is going to come off. So that's going to be kind of the base, or where those legs are coming off of the body. And then we can go ahead and add the legs. So we've got a femur, a tibia, and tarsi, just like on the first leg. Definitely should have drawn the head smaller. I got all excited. Femur. The tibia, and that tibia is also going to have tibial spurs. And then our little tarsal formula. So the tarsi look very, very similar to the front pair. So let's zoom in, because I think that the angle is a little different here. So we might be able to actually see. Yeah, so you can almost kind of see how this second tarsal segment right here is kind of like a cup. It's almost circular, and that the third segment comes out of the center of it rather than coming out of the, rather than kind of just connecting itself to the end. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions or comments, or you want to see different parts of the insect, go ahead and comment that. I enjoy chatting with you guys, and what really makes these live streams fun is not only being able to sketch and check out the insects, but also being able to answer all of your buggy questions. So I'm wondering if anyone has a grasshopper story, if they played with them as a kid, like I played with them as a kid. You ever chased a grasshopper around? Oh. When I zoom in, it's sometimes difficult to remember, all right, we want to make sure that our sketches stay cat in the ceiling. There we go. All right, so we've got a rectangular segment, tarsal segment, a cup-like tarsal segment, and then this kind of longer one with 2 tarsal claws. And those are like our little toes, right? So the first and the second pair of legs, these are called saltatorial legs. That essentially means that they are walking legs. Saltatorial. Yes. No, saltatorial is the jumping one. Cursorial is walking. Yes. All right. So our first 2 pairs of legs here, I just wanted to double check my words before I told you. The first 2 pairs of legs here, they're called cursorial legs. That just means that they're kind of long and thin and they're modified for kind of running all over the place. And then we've got, and then we have saltatorial legs. And that means jumping. And so our jumping legs are going to look a little different from the top as, rather than the side, right? So I think what we'll end up doing is checking him out from the dorsal view, because that's how we first started sketching our grasshopper. But then we'll turn him on the lateral. We'll turn him on his side so that we can get a full image of his legs and what they're going to look like, from the side. A lot of times grasshopper legs have these really cool chevrons that you can almost see from the top, but it's going to be a lot better to see it from a lateral point of view or from the side. Yeah, awesome. We have other people that are chasing grasshoppers around. Oh, my favorite place to collect grasshoppers is in Texas. And that is because in Texas, I have had kind of the best luck with collecting them. I pulled over on the side of the road in Texas, and there was like a little rest area place where there were just a couple picnic tables. And so when I would go out and I'd collect, and I collected something like 10 different species of grasshoppers. And sometimes a lot of grasshoppers are this kind of yellowy color, but there are also ones that are red, and there's also ones with red wings and ones with blue wings. And so seeing all of the variety in colors of the wings, I have always thought that was really cool. All right, so I gave myself this kind of center line so that I can kind of imagine which direction the legs are going to go when they're coming up at me. But this line is just kind of my guide. I moved it up towards the wing and then back. And then what I'm going to do is kind of give it width. So where this break comes in, I'm going to give myself this little kind of half parabola. And then make it wider at the base and narrow at the top. Right? Wider at the base and narrower at the top. That's going to give us kind of that grasshopper leg shape that we want. But then also, if we're watching the center line of our leg, there are going to be these kind of chevrons that move this way towards the center and then this way. And you can almost see them from this angle. Are their colors pigmented? Yes! So, grasshoppers' colors are pigments. And so, and why does that matter? That matters because grasshoppers, after you pin them and spread them, a lot of times they will actually lose a lot of their coloration. And that's kind of a natural fading that these guys have. When you pin and spread something like a butterfly or a something, well, not all butterflies even. When you pin something like a really beautiful beetle, a lot of times those are going to keep their colors because they're structural colors. Whereas grasshoppers use pigment, and so that doesn't last as long and it fades over time in your collection. Alrighty. I'm going ahead and trying to give my grasshopper a tibia. It's got that knee joint here. Perfect. Okay, I wanted just to make sure you guys saw that. And the tibial spurs on a grasshopper's hind leg can be wild, right? They actually are very, they're very, very long, and they are, they're long and they're sharp, and they are used defensively. If you have ever if you've ever caught a grasshopper and you weren't holding on to its hind legs, it probably tried to stab you with them. All right. So I'm going through, and I added my tibia, and I'm going to go through and add a bunch of individual spines on both sides of the tibia. That's this little rectangle friend here. And then we can go ahead and add those little tarsal segments, which is 1, 2, 3, and then something along that line where you've got multiple that are inside of each other. Yes, it's crazy to see how strong their legs are. I completely agree with you there. All right, so I'm looking at our overall sketch so far. We've got antenna, eyes, we've got the pronotum, we've got the legs on the left and this wing on the right. I want to make sure that we finish kind of the inside of this body here. So what's going to help me with that is so you can see kind of right here, that's going to be also the edge of its abdomen. All right, so we're going to go ahead and give it maybe it looks like from the top here. I'm gonna show you this really quick too. It looks like from the top, this first wing on the left was the wing that kind of crossed over. So sometimes they'll hold their tegmina and they'll overlap the tegmina on the back, or they'll overlap their front pair of wings on their back. So this guy, he not only runs to the center line, but it looks like his abdomen is kind of off to the left just a little bit. But there we go. Alrighty. That works for me. Alrighty. Now, see his, I don't know how to add his abdomen here. Because technically, his leg comes up between his abdomen and that wing, right? So we're actually kind of seeing that leg right here. And I was trying to figure out how we're going to sketch that. But what I think that I can do is just make sure that I'm going to pull my wing just a little bit more over, so that it would essentially kind of hide the leg. And I'm going to make this space darker. All right. We've got a variety of abdominal segments, so you can always kind of add some of those in. That might help give your sketch just a little bit. But this guy, he's gonna be about done from the top, and I wanted to check him out from a side view, and maybe even from the front, so we can check out some of those awesome mouth parts. Now, when we are talking about grasshoppers, let me see. Do I have my grasshopper book right here? Not at the very moment. All right. When we are talking about grasshoppers, a lot of times, you'll actually see not only an entire image of the dorsal side, but you'll see an image of their legs, because their legs can be characteristic, and their wings. Moving some buggies around so that we can get a little bit of space. I need to switch for my grasshopper to be on his lateral, or to be on his side. I need to put him in a different container to make sure that all the specimens continue to stay safe. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah. Drawing the lateral on this guy is going to be awesome. We should have started with the lateral rather than the dorsal. Check out that leg. And you can see those little chevrons that I was talking about. We are going to, there is also that outer outside. So let's do this. Look at the beautiful veins on the tegmina. All right, we're going to get distracted really quick. Look how pretty. Look how pretty that is. Wow. Wow. So I would say his front pair of wings definitely has the texture of a leaf, right? You can see that it almost looks like all he has all of those little individual veins. A lot of times the veins in something like that is going to help him kind of blow up his wings when he first emerges. He's so pretty. Okay. I just needed to see that before we went back. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and we can just sketch one kind of the hind leg. And then we'll probably look at the head unless there's another body part that you would like to see, because I am always up for suggestions. If there is a certain part on the insect that you'd like to see, we could look at the tip of its abdomen to check out reproductive stuff, or we can look at its head. All right, I'm going to go ahead and give myself a center line on grasshoppers. That's going to make it a lot easier for me to build everything out. So, my lines are going to look like up and then down and then out. So that's going to be kind of our basic shape for our grasshopper's leg. And then we can go ahead and add to that. So you've got this, he has this little knobby knee. So you can create kind of a circle at the end and kind of bring it in a little bit before it comes back out. And then when it does start coming back out, that's going to grow and expand until it gets fairly wide at the base. And now, looking at it, it almost looks like a bowling pin. You can go ahead and add just, I'm going to do that just a little bit more. So yeah, my grasshopper has a little bit of a bowling pin type leg. He might have gotten a little too narrow up here now. Alrighty. And so what I love, why I love sketching insects is I feel like I notice something new every time, or I enjoy looking and kind of inspecting details, right? So that's what we're doing, is we're trying to see something new. What else is new about this guy that we haven't seen before? Now, inside of this leg, maybe what's missing is, maybe it needs to be just a little bit longer. Maybe that's what I'm missing. That's better. Okay. Yeah. I think that's a little better. All right. And then we are going to go ahead and add what almost looks like a raindrop shape to the inside of the leg. So if you start up here, there's kind of a point, but then it runs along the outside. Runs along the outside of this, and it gives us this kind of internal shape. So you can see those lines. The tip starts up here and then it comes down and around, and it looks like it actually connects down to the bottom, so we can go ahead and not cut that off. There you go. Alrighty. So we've got that kind of inside shape, and then along, and this part is actually why I like to keep my center line around, is because I like to make sure that as we're going through and adding these kind of individual long ovals, that they are kind of overlapping and running along that center. So we're going to go through and add almost like long, thin ovals, and they're all going to be angled towards the center line. So it'll be, you can start at the top, and then you can go just a little bit over on one side, and then a little bit over on the other side. Trying to keep the angles of these all, there you go, nice and staggered. Alright, so you've got this series of long circles that kind of interact with each other, and that's going to be kind of a main characteristic of this guy, but also many grasshoppers are going to have this kind of chevron on the outside. They also are going to have a variety of different striping patterns on the inside of their legs. Alright, I can go ahead and, as long as those circles were dark enough, I can, erase that center line pretty readily. Alrighty, and then move back to our tibia. Now our tibia, as we had looked at, has all of those huge spines. And those are going to be definitely defensive. So not only do grasshoppers have these awesome muscles that they can use to just propel themselves into the air, right? But they also will use those legs. Let's see. They'll also use those legs as defensive mechanisms. Wonder if that will help. That helps. My grasshopper was feeling like he was under a spotlight. He needed a little less light. Okay. Alright, so looking at where this guy comes down, we're just going to connect him up to the top. And we're going to give ourselves the basic shape, right? So we're going to give ourselves this kind of longer segment. And this segment, you'll notice that I didn't end this segment with a perfectly horizontal line. It has this little bit of an angle to it, and that's going to help us continue our tarsal segments, or the little toe segments. We also have all of those, we also have all of these spines that we can add. Now you'll notice that the spines don't start at the very, very top, and they start pretty small, and then they get larger. And some of these spines, we might even zoom in on some of them, some of those spines will actually have kind of these stripes on them. Trying to keep them thin, and if they have an angle, angling them down a little bit. I'm going to go back in and color a couple of them in for that striping. Yeah, look at those spines. All right, and this is going to be a kind of a cool view of our tarsal segments. All right, look at that. So our hind leg, where the tibia ends, I'm going to be modifying mine a little bit now that we've zoomed in on it, because you'll notice that it's almost like a little, kind of like a scoopy hand that holds on to the tarsal segments. And my guess is that is how he's going to get this lift off, how he's going to get this real big push off of the ground that he's standing on, because he has this ability to kind of use that little claw foot to kind of grab onto the sediments in the soil or the grass or wherever he's jumping off of. So just making it look like he's got this really awesome spiny hand coming off the bottom of his leg is going to help him grab onto the ground and really push off. We have this segment here, 1, this segment here, 2, and this segment here, 3, with little itty bitty claws. One. 2. notice that he still has, it still doesn't really come out of the center. It doesn't come out of the end. It kind of comes out of the center. He still has that almost like scoop-like second tarsal segment. He's just at a different angle this time. I think that's cool. I think I really like the hind legs of grasshoppers. All right. The other thing that we can look at is his head. I'm curious if we can see any spiracles. We talked a little bit about spiracles on Thursday night. I'm not seeing any. Okay. So now I'm trying to figure out, let's see, we'll probably flip him upside down and see if we can view his mouth parts from this direction. Cool. There you go. All right, so we can see all of the pieces. I'm gonna help us as we're sketching together this mouth part. I'm gonna help us kind of add all of the pieces together so we can kind of imagine them. Now with mouth parts, insects are going to have essentially a top lip that's called the labrum, the bottom lip that's called the labium, and then mandibles, right? Those are going to be what he's actually using to chew with. And then he has kind of these palps, these maxillary palps. And those palps, I like to call mouth fingers. That is not the scientific term for them. All right. So when we're looking at our grasshopper's mouth parts, we've got this top one, this kind of top lip. It almost looks like it's this shape right here. So his labrum is this guy right here. It kind of comes up and comes down. And then there is a suture up here. So it's kind of this whole plate is kind of like his top piece, the top piece of his mouth. So that's going to help him kind of hold stuff down towards his mandibles. Now, if we're looking right about here, you can see that there's these two little triangles. Those are actually the front side of his mandibles. So he has this strength coming around. And those parts are going to be what actually opens and closes and helps him chew onto his food. No problem. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Diana. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And, yeah, feel free to come back next week. We'll be drawing a whole new bug. Alrighty. So we've got that awesome mandible. And then, if we are looking, is there a place to share my picture? I have places in my... You know what would be awesome? You can, my website is theinsectopia.com, and I believe that you can add an attachment, and you could send it to me that way. That would be awesome. You can share it on my Facebook page. Generally, I will go and I'll put my sketch right afterwards and say, hey, if anyone else was joined us, you can share your sketch onto there. So you can also share your sketch on the Facebook page, which should be under that link. I have a nature journaling event that is on Facebook that we share all of our sketches on, but that is for people who are in kind of this nature journaling club, and so I'm not sure if you are in that. If you're in the nature journaling club, you can add it to the classroom. But you're right. I'm going to have to find a better way to kind of collect everybody's awesome artwork and kind of share it. I'd love to have a whole place on my website where it was kind of like Sketches Hall of Fame, and I post everybody's sketches and we get to check them out. That's something that I'm still kind of working on. Very good. I love seeing people's art, especially when it's like, you know, something that you created while we were sketching together. It's nice to see how people change and develop in some of these awesome arts. You guys are awesome artists. So, all right. So we've got the labrum, we've got the mandibles. I want to add our mouth fingers, our palps. Now, depending on whether they're connected, where they're connected, they'll be called labial pulps or maxillary pulps. But they are right here. You can see it's kind of 1, 2, 3. There's like these 4 joints, and it almost looks like a little itty bitty leg next to its mouth. And those are actually what my grasshopper is going to use to kind of grab onto the food and push it towards his face. Right? So his legs are too long to really help him eat. And obviously they're not using forks. So those are going to help them kind of really, really push that grass or push those leaves towards his face. And so we can go ahead and give him some of these segments. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we can go ahead and add them to the other side too. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I believe grasshoppers have both labial and maxillary pulps. So you've got another pair of pulps down here. And let's see, if I zoom in, we might even be able to see them better. Yeah. All right. So if you look right here and right here, those that look like kind of more kind of like mouth stalks, essentially, little mouth fingers, those guys are there too. So we can go ahead, and those look like they're more 2-segmented rather than 4-segmented. So they might just be kind of smaller and in the background. And then we have this bottom lip area, right? This is the labium. And it helps hold everything together. Awesome sauce. So that's kind of our little mouth part sandwich, right? The top, the bottom, the mandibles, and the palps all working together to make an awesome friend here. Now, when we are talking about, let's see. When we're talking about grasshoppers and we're trying to identify them to family, if you're not sure that it's a necritid, that it's a basic, that it's an necritid, one of the characteristics that we look for are a throat spur. So right here in between the first 2 pairs of legs in, I believe in the lubber grasshoppers, they're going to have this throat spur, or this kind of looks like a spine between their legs. This guy doesn't have it. So a lot of times when I'm sketching and I'm teaching about insects, we also talk about the overall shape of different body parts. So a lot of times the head is ovoid or spherical. It's kind of a circular shape. This is going to help with sensory and kind of seeing around themselves. But when you get back into the thorax, a lot of times the thorax is a little more boxy. It's almost like a big square, and that's going to help with all of the muscle connections. And this is a really cool example of that because you can see that the thorax is pretty much it's a little bit rectangular, but it's pretty much a square, right? And grasshoppers have so many muscles in this area that they have to have all of these places to connect. And then, moving back to the abdomen is actually fairly thin and long, so check that out. And the abdomen is going to be where all of its internals are, but he doesn't need all of those, he doesn't need as many of those really strong muscles to move all of his different body parts. And so, the abdomen can be pretty thin if he wants. Awesome. Well, I had a good time drawing this grasshopper. I am curious out there. We have still a handful of people out there watching. I'm feeling pretty good and wouldn't mind sketching another insect if you guys were up for it. I do have that Longhorn Beetle. That let's see, he was right here. Yeah, I do have this guy. He's a Milkweed Longhorn Beetle. So I'm curious for you guys out there. Are you feeling pretty done, or do you want to do another one? What do we think? You think you want to check out another part of my grasshopper? You want to do another one? I want to do another one. All right. Well, I think we're good. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I have super enjoyed, let's see, hanging out today and getting to sketch a little bit with you guys. I might continue sketching, but I want to, I don't want to lose too many people when I start sketching my next insect. So I'm just going to say, I want you guys to see all of these things before we get to sketching another one. And that is that I have all types of different programs and things out there if this is something that you are interested in, right? So I actually not only do live streams on YouTube for the public audience, right? But I have, I teach on a platform called OutSchool. So I teach all types of insect classes, and I have insect clubs for kids 5 to 8 and 9 to 12. So if there's a little one in your life that just absolutely loves bugs and wants to kind of hang out and chat bugs with other kids, OutSchool is the place to be. You can go ahead and subscribe to this channel so that you can get notifications on when I'm doing this types of stuff. I hang out on Instagram and I post this thing called Guess That Bug Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So this was one that was recent. You can see this is the abdomen of an insect. It has it has stinger, so obviously we know it's going to be some type of bee, wasp, or ant, and so we can check out his head-on view, and then at 5 o'clock we learned that he was a bald-faced hornet, so that's something that I really like to do. You can go ahead, this is what I do for a living. It's what I absolutely love, is teaching, and so if you would like to, that's always available. You can tip me just a little bit, donate, buy me a coffee, however you would like. And let's get, I wanna sketch a Longhorn Beetle. I've been wanting to. So, we're gonna do that. this Longhorn Beetle is called this Longhorn Beetle is called a Milkweed Longhorn Beetle, so it's going to be very readily, you will find it on milkweed plants. Let's get him up there on the screen. All right. I measured him before class, and he was about 1.3 centimeters long. So if you like to make sure that you have a scale on your sketches, that's going to be from the tip of his head to the back of his elytra, is about 1.3 centimeters. This is going to be our overall. Let's chat about him first. Let's see. He is a Milkweed Longhorn. Now, a lot of insects that feed on milkweed are this red color, and that's because they have aposematic coloration, meaning that they have a color that means I might be poisonous. Run away from me, right? Don't eat me. I'm poisonous. That's when you see like a poison dart frog, right? And it's got the bright red color, the bright yellow coloring. That's what we call aposematic coloration. And that just means warning colors, right? So it's the big scientific way to say, hey, he's warning you not to mess with him. Now, this guy is so milkweed longhorn beetles are in the genus Tetraopes. And so this guy is Tetraopes tetrathelmis. Say that 5 times fast. I'll spell that out for you. Gonna have to get rid of aposematic coloration. It's in the way. At least I wrote it with pencil. So Tetraopes tetrathelmis is Old Greek, I believe, and it means 4 eyes. A lot of times in longhorn beetles, the segment that where the antenna connects to the head, there's like an emargination, or the antenna kind of cuts into the eyes of many of the longhorn beetles. But on this guy, the antenna not only cut into his compound eyes, but they actually split his compound eyes in half. I have to clean my microscope in a minute. Yeah. All right. So if we were looking, so this is the lateral side of the head of our longhorn beetle. And when we're kind of checking him out, this right here, if I zoom out just a little bit, this right here is his antenna. And as I zoom in and I'm following his antenna towards his head, we can see right about here, this is kind of focused where the antenna is going to meet the head. And it's really kind of hard to see his eyes, right? But let's see. Something this might be a little better. There we go. Yeah. So his antenna comes out right in the middle of his eye. This up here, that little black spot, that's the top of his compound eye. And this down here at the bottom, that's the bottom of his compound eye. All right, so 90% of longhorn beetles, there's this, the eye actually will kind of surround the antenna, whereas with these guys, the antenna completely cut the compound eye in half. All right, so that's one of the characteristics. That's one of the characteristics on this guy that make him really cool. The other thing is we generally can find these, we generally do find these all over milkweed plants. And they have that coloration because they have the ability to sequester the poison or the toxin from the milkweed. Getting to sketching my beautiful milkweed longhorn beetle. I'm going to make sure that I don't draw the head as large for this time so that we can make sure that he stays in the lines. He needs to stay in the box. I like to start at the kind of the base of the head and work myself out towards the end. It is a more roundy shape that it's kind of like a flat rectangle. Kind of like this. He has a little bit of an emargination, or a little bit of, it cuts in just a little bit at the end. So you can kind of add that in. And we're going to want to go ahead and add the little itty bitty piece of your compound eye, and then where the antenna are going to come out, right kind of underneath it. Now, longhorn beetles get their names from the fact that they generally have very long antennae, long and straight. Now, with these guys, you'll notice that in between the individual segments of the antenna, there is a little bit of shaping. And so instead of just like with the grasshopper, we had we kind of drew these lines and then added the crosses at the end. With the milkweed beetles, we want to build each individual segment, and so that's going to give us make it so that the lines are not all even, and it'll show us that we've got this kind of long antenna with individual segments. Alrighty. And then our pronotum is going to be this next piece right here. And he looks like he actually also he not only has a pronotum that looks kind of like this, like a wider square, but on the edges or on the lateral sides of our longhorn beetle, he's got I wouldn't call them spines, but he has this protrusion? I don't know what I would call these. Warts. Shaping. Like triangular shaping, maybe? Yeah. Just an extra little bit of shaping there. And he has 4 dots that run on either side of his And they're actually pretty circular. I think that that's really cool. They're circular and they're symmetrical. He has a four-sided die on his back. All right. There is a little bit of a separation between the pronotum and the elytra, or that first segment of the wings. And so I'm just going to give myself an additional little rectangle and shade it in a little bit. You've got a pretty dark space there. And then along the center line, that's going to be called the scutellum. And then he's got some shoulders on him. So his shoulders come out. Okay. And then move down. And I'm going to see if we can zoom out a little bit to see the overall shape of his elytra. Ready. So I'm giving us kind of this rounded edge to the bottom of our beetle. And obviously it's not perfectly circular. So after we've gotten kind of that base U shape on our beetle, we're going to go back in and add some features. So I'm going to take this center line and bring it all the way down. But then at the end, you'll notice that it doesn't stay all the way straight to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and give us this little bit of a separation here. That's going to make our friend a little more realistic. And then I'm going to erase this where it separates and pull it out just a little bit. Because you can see the end of the tip of his abdomen just a little bit. All right, so that's how I'm going to go ahead and end the tip of his elytra. All right, now he does have some coloration that we can add. His shoulders are actually pretty dark. He's got that coloration on his shoulders. He has these two spots up here that point towards each other. Making sure that they stay mostly symmetrical, the same on the left and the same on the right. And then we can go ahead and give them these kind of longer spots. These guys are about double the length of everybody else. And these spots actually are I was looking at different photos of these guys, and most of the individuals in this species are going to have these two kind of longer spots. Alrighty. I'm going to smudge them in just a little bit. There. Alrighty. And then, it's almost like he has little exclamation points on his back. Because it's kind of the long and then the short. He says, "I'm dangerous. Stay away from me." Oh my goodness, these beetles are also really super cute because if you've ever seen one of these guys, you should pick him up. Pick him up and scare him just a little bit. You know, don't scare him too much. But if you pick him up and you hold him up against your ear, you can hear them and they squeak. All right, they're like little squeaky beetles. They squeak to try and scare you away. They have the ability to go eat, 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 and it's really, really super cute. So I would definitely suggest playing with these guys if you ever have the opportunity. I definitely have. I'm going through and adding a handful of more segments to my antenna, trying to make sure that they stay about the same length, but the same length to each other. I want to get them a little bit longer. And you know what? It's okay if your antenna kind of go crazy on the paper, because you know what? Longhorn Beetle's antenna, they go crazy. And as long as each individual segment of your antenna is straight, that's how their antenna work anyway, right? They have the ability to bend at every single joint. So just make sure that the segments are straight, but all the other ones are fine. Okay, now we've talked a little bit about like tarsi and tarsal formulas. Longhorn beetles have what we call an apparently 444 tarsal formula. So we're going to be looking at the legs, and we're going to be describing that a little bit. We're going to look at the first leg. All right, because the antenna is in the way, it's a little bit more difficult to see the apparently 444 tarsal segment on this guy. I'll show it to you while we're sketching, and then we'll be able to see it on the middle leg, I'm sure. All right, so going in and adding that femur, a little joint like the kneecap, and then the tibia. All right. Now, with this guy, he's supposed to have what we call an apparently 444 tarsal formula. So, he should have about what looks like 4 tarsal segments. Those are going to look like 1, 2, and then the third one is kind of this heart shape with a pad. And then what looks like the fourth one comes off the center of your heart shape. All right, that is what is your apparently 444. When we zoom in on the middle leg, we'll be able to see that it's actually 555. And there's a little itty bitty micro tarsal segment that's down there that's kind of hiding that nobody really talks about. So that's why we call it apparently 444, even though it's not. So, going into our middle leg is going to show those segments a little better, so I'm excited about that. Our middle leg is going to come off of the body right about here. This is where kind of the second segment of the thorax is. The femur comes up a little bit to give him a little bit of stability, but the tibia comes down. My femur was started a little bit too wide, so I had to narrow it just a little bit. Alrighty. And then we've got this longer tibia, and then the tarsal segments. Now, we're going to zoom in even further. Okay. All right, so tarsal segment number 1 is right here. It's kind of this triangular shape. All right. Tarsal segment number 2 fits inside of it. It's also kind of triangular. 3 is this pad right here, right, that looks like this heart that we talked about a little earlier. It has kind of 2 ends on it. That is tarsal segment number 3. Now, tarsal segment number 4, the real little itty bitty tarsal segment, is actually kind of stuck in between those two little loops right there. And you can almost see it when we zoom in really, really far. And so there's a little itty bitty segment right here in between, kind of in the center of T3. The tarsal segment, the 3rd tarsal segment. So there's just this little itty bitty segment that's kind of in the center. And then connected to that, we have the last tarsal segment with its little claws. And the claws are facing down, so you can't see them as much. And so you can see that that's 1, 2, 3. The little itty bitty one counts as 4, and then this one is 5. But because it's so difficult to see that little itty bitty segment in between the two, and most of the time you can't even see it. You know, even when you try to zoom really far in, there are times when you can't see it. And so instead of making that a characteristic, instead of writing 555 in the keys, because you can't see one of the segments 90% of the time, they call it apparently 444. All right. And it's going to be the same on every single one of these legs. Squeaky beetles. Alrighty. So our hind leg looks like it is coming out from about here, although it's probably connected up here somewhere, right? Because our thorax. Got our femur, our tibia, and our apparently 444, which we've already drawn twice now, so we have an idea of what the shapes are. 2 triangles, one with a double pad, the little segment, and then the additional one. All right. That gives us that idea. That's so much fun. All right. I'm going to go ahead and add my, my right legs. Maybe. Yeah. We've got time. Trying to make sure that all of the legs stay symmetrical is one of my challenges. I'll do that last one really quick. So I think that it could have come out a little bit better. But that is what our Milkweed Longhorn Beetles looks like. I think he's super awesome, and I love that head-on view when we were looking at the compound eyes. There's a part of me that kind of wants to take the top corner of my paper and give that a sketch really quick, because I think that that's one of the coolest spots. Look at him. He's got the craziest eyes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and draw him head on really quick to show off his compound eyes. So he's got this kind of center suture line that'll help me base everything off of. The top of his eye, and then the bottom of his eye, and then where the antenna segments come out. And this is pretty zoomed in, so the segments are going to be fairly large. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side, so kind of give this like half of a circle shape and then a moon shape underneath it, with the antenna coming right out from between the two segments of his eyeball. Alrighty. He also has, let's see, we'll give it round off the top, bring it down, and bring it across. What we are looking at here, he does actually have, where did my pointer go? There it is. All right. This little segment right here and this little segment right there, those are actually little palps, like we were talking about with the grasshopper. So those are his little, he does have little two-segmented kind of mouth fingers that he's going to help grab onto food and pull it to his face. And then right here, that kind of sharp piece that you're looking at, that is actually a mandible. And we can add both of them if we wanted. You can only see one in this image, but the other one does come out. And so you can go ahead and add those two little mandibles. And then the labrum, or the top lip, it's actually right here. And it looks like it's kind of super fluffy. So I'm going to add that in. And we might even be able to zoom in so that you can see that even a little better. Yeah. All right, so this is his mandible, one of the mandibles. The other one is there, but he probably has it kind of tucked into his mouth rather than sticking out. This is one of those mouth fingers, or a palp, and this is a palp, and then this little segment right there, that's his top lip. That's what helps him hold the food down towards his teeth. Awesome sauce. Head on. Perfect. So I not only like to make sure that the insect is labeled with the species, but every now and again I'll label things like dorsal or head on view, so that it'll help me kind of line everything up and make sure that we are all situated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we got 2 buggies done. We've been going for almost 2 hours now. I'm pretty happy. We learned a couple of things about Longhorn Beetles, about their tarsal segments, right? So they have 5 segments on the front, 5 segments in the middle, and 5 segments on the hind. Except we call it, quote unquote, apparently 444. Because they trick us. Tricky guys. All right. I would love to see your sketches. So, if you would like to share those with me, that would be awesome. And make sure that when you do, let me know if I'm allowed to also share it on social media, because I like to share what everybody else is also sketching, right? So I like to share mine, but you can feel free to post yours, post your sketches and reply to mine on my Facebook page, or you can send them to my website. This is our closer. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me. All of the things, right? Come and find me on my website at theinsectopia.com. Take classes, love the bugs, do the Instagram stuff, and I hope to see everybody around. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. All right. Bye, guys.